Boy, you want to talk about Tom Brady, and he gives the interview. He doesn't give it to the football writer. He doesn't give it to, say, my man Michael Holley up there on WEEI in Boston. You know, he doesn't give it to, I don't know, who's a Peter King. He gives it to Oprah Winfrey. That's when you know you're elite. When you give the interview to Oprah Winfrey. And Tom Brady is certainly elite. But I mean, no, it's kind of interesting because I know that there does get to be resentment sometimes from the beat writers, let's say, that cover a team. And really all they get to know for a Tom Brady is the locker room interview. Mic around, a bunch of people. He answers 10 questions. Maybe you get one in, possibly two. That's the beat, right? And then from that, he's got to dissect. And this is where, people say, I didn't say, he's taking me out of context. Because you can only philosophize, And I know that, 24 hours in a day, so you can't talk to every media member. By the way, though, I am going to be critical of one local athlete who did not give much time to the media when I think he should have. We get to that later on in Tri-City Sports Now. I'm Marky Billson, by the way. Wanted to continue on with my rant about baseball. But like I said, a lot of times, you get those huge, iconic stars. And I know Terry Bradshaw was this way, where he really isn't as well received in Pittsburgh as he should. And one of the reasons why is that, Bradshaw now is sort of a national figure. He's not just a local sports figure, and really was sort of, going in that direction when he was playing for the Steelers and being the first quarterback to win 4 Super Bowls. Brady, of course, the first to win 5. But when he was the first quarterback to win 4 Super Bowls way back 40 years ago. And, he was positioning himself with albums and movies of being a national figure and eventually a sportscaster. Dabbling in acting, like I said. And he wasn't necessarily, the guy like Franco Harris was. And again, I'm going to use old Steelers. Forgive me here. By the way, got a little bit of news on Josh Dobbs that I want to get to if we have the time. But just wanted to point out that, with that, it was, Franco Harris still lived in Pittsburgh year-round, let's put it that way. Was involved in charitable endeavors. And so there became something of a friction, if you will, because, he's not part of us. He's not giving back to the community, if you will, or in lieu of that, he's become too big of a star for us. There is a local that I think is doing that to this community. Stay tuned to the rest of Tri-City Sports Now, and I will get to that. But I am going to go and continue to rant on with baseball. I mentioned here interleague play. Interleague play destroyed the All-Star game. Bud Selig was trying to make, I'll give the All-Star game, meaning it'll be home field advantage in the World Series. But that even, people said that's stupid. Pretty much was. Because the All-Star game was that rivalry with the American and the National League when they didn't play. I mean, I used to get excited because it was such a rarity. I used to get excited for the Grapefruit League. I used to follow that. I used to want to go to, I actually did in 1987. I went down to Florida, my grandparents. I said, I want to go to spring training. What games do you want to go to, Marky? I said, Pirates and Rangers. Why do I want to see Pirates and Rangers? Because the American National League didn't play each other, so that was something new. But as I said, and you can say, well, what about a Mets-Yankees rivalry? Something like that. Cubs-White Sox, usually they played exhibitions that actually were somewhat contested. There used to be something called the Mayor's Cup back in the day, I mean, the Mets used to win that because they played to win, and the Yankees were sort of like, come on, you're a terrible expansion team. Why should we throw our best pitchers here? But no, there was rivalry, that sense. There was a game that really mattered there, but you also still had, the rivalries against the traditional team. Now we're trying to be told Braves Blue Jays is bigger than Braves Reds. It isn't. The other thing that all these gimmicks, interleague play, does is not only does it take away the two distinctive styles of baseball from the various leagues, but it also takes away, if you will, scheduling. I mentioned before how it used to be in the old 16-team Major League Baseball that we had until 1960, schedule was perfect. I mean, it really was. It wasn't just 11 home, 11 away against everybody, but there was a system, as I said to you. If the Boston Braves were playing the Phillies and you knew it was Brooklyn, New York Giants, and when the Eastern teams, let's say Boston, New York, Brooklyn, Philly, played against the Western teams of the National League, which would have been Pirates, Reds, Cardinals, and Cubs, then the Western teams of the American League invaded the East. See how that worked? So then there was, less of a chance of, say, the Yankee or those two-team towns of, hosting. The Phillies wouldn't be hosting Phillies and A's, they play in the same ballpark. How come there wasn't a conflict of interest? Now you know why. See how beautifully it worked. Okay, so then they got to 20 teams. They were still doing 18 against each other in the era of 20 major league teams. There was still some, perfection to the schedule. They did the division play. Hey, baseball was getting bigger. It was expanding. 24 teams. You could still play 18 in your own division. 12 against the other teams. You still had 2 West Coast trips. If you're the Braves, you had 3. No one really ever understood why the Braves and Reds were in the West and the Cardinals and Cubs were in the East. Fay Vincent tried to change that. Eventually, then Bud Selig, took over and said, I know, we'll start the wild card. And like I said, the difference is, and I mentioned this before, the difference was, and you can say, hey, you want to say that those wild cards aren't legitimate. What about those 73 Mets, Marky, 82 and 79, and they wind up playing in a 7th game in a World Series, right? I hear you. But the thing about that era was that you did have a balanced schedule in the divisions, but it was a different schedule. So just like you in, say, college football, okay? Hey, why is Alabama the national champion? Because being a one-loss team out of the SEC is more impressive, at least theoretically, than being an undefeated team out of the American. Well, you could say with the differences of scheduling, then, well, wait, here are 2 champions of this various league, of these divisions, beating them out for an equal schedule. How do you know that if the Mets didn't play the Western Division schedule, that they wouldn't have been more competitive, that they wouldn't have been worthy? So, if you had a disparity between, first and second, or should I say in that case, and I've forgotten how many games the Reds won that year, but, if you had, let's say, a 100 victory team in one division playing a 95 victory team in another division, and the 95 team won in the playoff, 95 victory team won in the playoff, it wasn't the end of the world because of different schedules. You could say, well, now we've settled it on the field in a 5 or a 7 game series. Okay. There's something to that. But now, interleague play, it's a mishmash, and the schedules are different, and instead, like I said, you have, instead of the Braves playing the Dodgers. Anybody remember the Braves broadcasts and Ernie Johnson? Yeah, I know it's a previous era, it's an old era, but they'd say about all the cities that the airline that sponsored the Braves, it's pretty universal which one did, but they don't sponsor this station, so I'm not going to mention them. And they go to the home of the Cubs and the Cardinals, the Pirates and the Reds, and he goes through the Astros and the Giants and the Padres. And oh yeah, the Dodgers, too. Remember that ad? Obviously, I guess you have to be of a certain age set, but no, it was a great ad. Braves don't play the Dodgers much anymore. I mean, we have my man, Josh Brown from Knock Home Nation talks about the Braves-Phillies rivalry, and it's kind of his story. But, Braves-Phillies, is it really, Braves-Mets a little bit? But that's just, whoever plays New York. Anyway, I've gone a long way with that. Gimmicks are just, they're ruling the game. And when they fail to work, it's like a chef. He's put the wrong spice in his dish. And does he say, oh, I'm sorry, they didn't order that? We're going to have to ask him to stay put for a little bit, but I'm going to have to redo the order here. I'm sorry, I put in nutmeg when I should have put in cinnamon. I'm very sorry, blah, blah, blah. No. They double down on the spices. Okay, we're going to put in, the cinnamon now. I put in a lot of it so they won't taste the nutmeg. And what else will get rid of the nutmeg? I know, garlic. Garlic. Well, this is what baseball is doing. Okay? We already have limits on mound visits. I think that really destroys strategy. No more intentional walks where you can, again, destroying strategy. You have a situation like in the 72 World Series with Johnny Bench at bat and Gene Tennis behind the plate, and you sneak it in when you thought that he was going to intentionally walk. You can't have that element of the game anymore. Save a minute a week. You ever notice the College World Series? They still have the now old-fashioned stick out the hand intentional walk. Okay. But we now have a commissioner who is championing, in the wake of this declining attendance, hey, games are now 30 minutes longer than they were before the DH. Last year was 35. And we'll see pitch clock soon, already doing several minor leagues. Problem is, new Commissioner Rob Manfred and Bud Selig with these radical changes are essentially saying the game that we all loved, that we all knew is flawed, and it wasn't. Wasn't broke, but they wanted to fix it. Baseball's got a great connection to its past. It returned to its roots with the ballpark construction boom that began in the 1990s, where teams disdained the cookie cutters that may have not been aesthetically pleasing. I will tell you they did put an element of speed into the game. But they went to the retro-style ballparks, beginning with Camden Yards. Okay, save for the deep center fields. They didn't put that in the retro ballparks. That was a mistake. That was a fatal flaw because deep center fields demand a team recognize a speed element to the game. For that matter, they allow a pitcher to pitch and pace himself with the weaker hitters, and that saves his arm, not pitch counts. What is not comprehensible, since baseball is willing to go retro, we see it with the ballparks, but not with the rules. For the most part, with the ballparks, they aren't willing to go retro with the rules. And if you look at the rules of old-time baseball, the games are lasting, on average, less than 2 hours. If you go back to, say, the 1940s. So I've got an idea. Pace of play a problem. Games taking twice as long as they were in that era. Let's figure out what they were doing in that era and go back to it. I don't care if you got to leave the gloves on the field. I mean, I don't think that's going to do anything to pace of play, to be honest with you. But, I mean, you gotta go. It's not those who are doomed, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. It's that, you're ignoring history, trying to come up with every gimmick you can when the answer is right there in the past, and all you got to do is open up a book. I don't understand why Manfred doesn't realize how rule changes, be it the DH, and I know there are fans out there that like the DH, you've been duped, okay? Expanded postseason, interleague play, making the game pay-per-view, or quite honestly, almost any change that has occurred in baseball since the days of the Polo Grounds has been a detriment to the game. I will tell you, getting chewing tobacco out, I think that's probably a good thing. The replay, I think, is a good thing. I know this, it takes too long. Get the call right. I still don't know who won the 2007 National League wildcard game. I still don't know if he touched the plate or not. I still don't know if the Rockies are a legitimate pennant winner. Now, look, I do understand. overwhelming criticism to change. May sound kind of like a senior citizen who laments, why doesn't the new generation listen to Tin Pan Alley songs? I understand, you get that old fogey, but no, I'm talking about gimmicks. And that's what baseball has given us. Gimmicks, gimmicks, gimmicks. I'm sick of watching baseball going from being Hannah Montana to the pixie cut tattooed, tongue displaying gargoyle that is Miley Cyrus. That's what baseball has become. We're now in an era where defensive alignments leaving third base right for the taking for any runner on second that can be countered with the most fundamental of basics. Just laying down a bunt. The way they're playing them, you get a double out of it, for crying out loud. But no, we can't do that. Why not? Enter Manfred. Hey, let's have more gimmicks. I'm thinking about a rule that says you can't have 3 infielders on one side. Do you need that? Look at the, analytics. Okay. Both a blessing and a curse. Both a blessing and a curse. But a manager like Gabe Kapler, you seen this? Using the shift all the time. Using it 29% of the time, where basically it works 17% of the time. I mean, this is what analytics are saying. That he's using the shift way too often. And so we have to prevent a new rule to save Gabe Kapler? What is this madness? Just like Jake Arrieta has come out and said, we're doing too many shifts here. I'm not comfortable with this. Why doesn't he listen to his players? The game was perfect. It had natural filters for that sort of thing. Like I said, the shift is nothing new. It used to be called the Williams shift. Lou Bordeaux did it against Ted Williams in the 40s. But, just like pinch hitters in the 7th inning, that saved a starting pitcher from throwing too many pitches. Hey, look, it's 3-2. I know you're throwing well, and this is your ball game, but we need a rally, or we're down by a run. Great outing, 3-2. Yeah, hit the showers, wonderful. But hopefully we get the rally going here. And that'll keep 100 pitch. You don't need DH. They had enough hitters willing to take what the defense gave him and hit it to the opposite field to overcome shifts. Why won't players do that now? You get a triple to left, which is unheard of, but the way the defense is playing, take it. Look, I could go on and on. I mean, you know me, I've talked a lot about Chief Wahoo, more than probably anybody wants to hear. The Indians mascot, or a logo. It should be the mascot, too. And I know you can say, Marky, we're sick of this. You're an Indians fan. You're whining, blah, blah, blah. I get that. Okay, really I do, which is one of the reasons why, although it outrages me, that the commissioner wants to take away a beloved logo of 70 years just because he doesn't like it. But here's the deal. Let's just say you're an Indians fan, or you're a fan of any team. How would you like it if a symbol that you loved and cherished for 70 years now had you wrongfully branded as a bigot? Put the scarlet letter on you just because of the team that you rooted for. Well, no wonder the Indians' attendance is down, huh? And what really scares me is that Manfred is now using the same kind of language he used prior to forcing the tribe to save their logo, to change their logo. I hope the tribe can save it. They're going to put it on shirts. They're going to still continue to sell it, just won't be on the uniform. So that's a compromise, thankfully. But he's talking about, I think the DH should come to the NL. The one rule that has slowed pace of play down to a crawl, and he wants to implement it universally. Great. Don't give fans a choice. Better yet, don't put your fans on what they'd like. Don't do what Peter Ueberroth did in 1985, which is finding fans of National League teams didn't like the DH, but American League teams did. So you know what he said? Hey, maybe we ought to give our fans a choice. Maybe those New York baseball fans, some of them will like the Mets style of play. Some of them will like the Yankees style of play. Maybe we should let the fans choose. Maybe we should let fans in, Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. I used to live in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. You had a bunch of teams around there. There was the Orioles, American League. You also had the Phillies and the Pirates. The Expos hadn't moved to Washington, D.C. yet. Okay. But don't you see you had choices of what style of play you could watch? Now they want to take that all away. How's that going to help the game? So yeah, man, Fred, don't listen to what people want. Don't take polls. Be a czar. Implement the one rule that has single-handedly caused the pace of play to be slowed down to a crawl to overrun the sport like kudzu. That'll work. Let's ignore the fact that the youth of America loved baseball before gimmicks, and now they treat it indifferently. Let's have more gimmicks. Let's double down on the gimmicks. Let's double down on what doesn't work. Let's say that a sport that has been popular since the middle part of the 19th century, for crying out loud, was actually, all along, fundamentally flawed. I know better. Let's not listen to the customer. Let's tell him, we know what you want. That's baseball in 2018. It's got to stop for the sport to survive. About 7 minutes, I'm going to talk to Jared Diamond. He is the writer for the Wall Street Journal. And he wrote a piece about baseball's attendance declining that everybody's talking about. I mean, everybody's talking about this piece. Tri-City Sports Now. Yeah, Appalachian League season begins with gimmicks. Runners at second base to begin the 10th inning. We're coming back after this. You're looking